Welcome back to SLADE. This is 1823, a fictional representation of a tank engine that was converted to tender. A friend of mine asked me to paint this for him back in 1996. I continue now to be amazed at how good a job I did of the decals. I'm having to double bank two pair of glasses just to use this camcorder. I don't believe I would be able to do decaling like this ever again. The 1 and the 8 are two separate decals. The 2 and the 3 were together. And the dull coat on the boiler still appears perfect, but on the side of the cab and on the tender flanks the dull coat is breaking down, and in fact the number 8 decal is beginning to lift. That may be because how it was stored for about 10 years. And you see, I had to put a nut in the cab to help keep the chassis secured. The coal, of course, is gloss black after the dull coat. And the lifelike knuckle in the tender, of course, just slips straight in. Now that is the rather elegant hook from the front of the model, and that can be put back on at any time. It doesn't protrude very far forward of the buffers, so it really looks nice and it's good for close coupling. This is the original giant coupler that was on the tender. In 1996 I replaced it with the smaller version. And what it currently has is a lifelike knuckle. So you can see by the spigot hole, the lifelike knuckle is going to go straight into place and beautifully spring from side to side as required. That's how it has come to have a knuckle. Alright, so the wagons we have. There is 3 MRCs with two different ice hatch configurations. Here we have MRC 25088, 25099 and 25745. We have MLV 1419, 1568. This MLV has been recoded an NLMA 12676. I'm not sure when the recoding happened, I couldn't be bothered to look it up. And also I have MBC 25056, which is a converted MRC with the ice compartments removed. So let's, I've shuffled the deck, I have a fresh skewer. Let's get shunting. MRC 25745, which is the one in the far corner. So the story of 1823 begins in '96. So a friend of mine and I went for a trip to Woodpecker Model Railways together. He didn't have a valid driver's license at the time, so I drove us down, and I was interested in looking at rooftop material. My eyes were still good enough for me to be able to scratch build, and in a future episode I'll show some of my efforts. Anyway, I ended up buying a couple of wagons and some tiled rooftop. I never used it. Never ended up using that rooftop material. And my friend was looking at this. It was in the maroon LMS livery. It's one of 3 models of British prototype that Lima did in HO as opposed to 00. It's a 4F. And he liked it because he thought it was cute. So he purchased it. I said, what are you going to do with it? He said, I haven't worked that out yet. I might paint it grimy grey and try to pass it off as a 19 class 060 shunter. And that was the first time anyone told me that in the 1980s Lima had actually released this particular model in black as a New South Wales 19 class. Not terribly convincing, but anyway, I mean, had I known, I'd have bought one at the time, notwithstanding that I didn't yet have a job. I was still at school. I wouldn't have had the means. Anyway, then we came up with a better idea. The idea of painting it green just to make it pretty. Who doesn't love pretty? And passing it off as an 18 class tank engine that was converted to tender, because that happened with some of the 30 class tanks. They were converted to tender. I began by washing it in soapy water. I think I let it dry for 24 hours. Then I got some Testors gloss green in a pressure pack. I think I bought that Testors gloss green at Punch Bowl Hobbies, might have been. I also bought some Testors dull coat there as well. These are solvent based products, and I can tell you from memory, I mean, wow, that Testors dull coat, you had to be using this stuff outside. Oh, straight out to the backyard. Hell's bells. I reckon you could gas half the planet. Anyway, so I sprayed the model in the gloss green, then picked off the black bits in flat black, and that was a mistake. I should have used gloss black. I picked off the buffer beams in flat red, and again that was a mistake. I should have used gloss red. Then I applied the decals. So first of all I did all the number ones all around, and I trashed a few. It's a matter of getting the decal to sit on a bubble of water. Then you get a piece of tissue and you start wicking the water away until the decal lowers down. And then you use the decking, the decal backing to manoeuvre the decal in place. Did all the number ones, waited 24 hours, did all the number 8s, waited 24 hours, and then did all the 23s. Then I gave it a dull coat. I think I waited 48 hours and I gave it a second dull coat. And then I picked off the coal in gloss black. Okay, our next wagon is MLV 1419. And mechanically, yes, I shortened the tender link and I hardwired the two sections together. I polished up the commutator. MLV 1419, by the way, is this one here. Fitted new brushes and springs, and that was about it. I applied some graphite powder to the axles in the boiler section because it has a cast chassis, cast metal chassis of some description, and yeah, put on the smaller version of the Lima hook and loop coupler, and it holds mainline passenger services on his layout from 98 to about 2005. And then it sort of, the layout sat doing nothing for a few years, and then he packed the model away in 2010. I need to tickle the wheels. And he wrapped it up in tissue paper, and the tissue paper was dyed. It was a pretty tissue paper, and I'm not sure if the dye in the tissue paper is what has begun to break down and mottle the dull coat. Anyway, I can tell you that it's MRC 25099, and that's the MRC right at the back. Anyway, so he gave it back to me, and the gear set, because it's tender drive. I suppose I should have mentioned that, but I think that was evident. The gear set had developed a tight point, as if one of the larger gears had become somehow oval. I don't understand that. Anyway, because we applied no lubricant to the gear sets because they're that super slippery plastic that generally does not require lubrication. If you're running at scale speeds of about 60 or 70 kilometers an hour, in my experience, the Lima models don't need any lubrication in their gear sets. Anyway, so I looked through my spare parts that I had of Lima stuff that was still brand new in its packets from the 90s. This is the year 2018, I think. I unpackaged it to see if I could use it. 2018. So I found that I had a Lima chassis for a European shunter, a diesel shunter, and it had the same gears. And they appeared to be in perfect working order. So I fitted them, and I chose to put a very light smear of Vaseline, an invisible smear of Vaseline around the teeth of them. You might hear rain in the background now, above the hum of my NAS rack. We've had a thunderstorm. What is the time? I think it's just before midday. We've had a thunderstorm. Now we've got more rain. Okay. Anyway, so and then I still had a brand new virgin, as it were, commutator and armature assembly. So I installed that. I installed another set of brand new brushes and springs. Put more graphite on the axles in the boiler section. Cleaned the wheels. Gave it a sort of a brush down. I haven't brushed down the coal properly. If I was to brush down the coal properly, yes, maybe the coal would look a little bit nicer and glossier. Coal is shiny, of course. I really wasn't sure what I was going to do with it, and I really don't like mucking around, especially with it's in a slightly delicate state. If the dull coat is breaking down, I really don't want to be handling it and mucking around with it. So it just is as it is, and I think it's performing quite well here. And it certainly has a very special place in my heart, because I think it really is such a beautiful model. And I'm not trying to take claim, apart from getting the decals looking so nice, I sort of really can't. Oh, and my painting, getting the separation between where the joining where the black meets the green. Yes, that took skill and patience and good eyesight, and a little bit of flip-flopping back and forth. You spray some of the green spray paint into a little can, and then use a paintbrush, and if I go over with the black, I come back with the green, and so on. Yeah, that took patience, but the finish of it was just pure arse. It was Tester's gloss green, straight out of a pressure can, and then Tester's dull coat, straight out of a pressure can. And when you use Tester's dull coat, the edge of the decal becomes totally invisible. You can't actually see where the decal is, because the numbers are just magically applied. And that's MRC 25099 in the shed. The next one is the MBC. Okay, so let's get going. So yes, it's got the typical Lima flanges that are overscale. Although these ones, the flanges on this don't look as large as the flanges on some Lima models. It really isn't that awful to look at, and we've just stalled. It really isn't very awful to look at all, those flanges. The wheels on the tender are about as wacky as wheels can be. The forward and trailing wheel sets on the tender are actually steam engine wheels. If you look carefully at them, I'm not sure if the camera's picking it up, you see crank holes and counterweights going by, because they're driving wheels for a Lima steam locomotive. And then of course the centre wheels in the tender, they're not actually wheel sets. They're not actually proper wheels. They're just individual flangeless discs, you might call them, but they're not a wheel set. They don't have an axle. They are an individual disc on a plastic spigot. And the plastic spigot is like a square horseshoe hanging down to clear the ring magnet around the motor. It's alright, I'm going to make amends. Oh boy. I hope I don't get parodied for this. I'm still getting it wrong. Anyway, alright, so that's how easily a person can lose their concentration. I normally don't. Alright. This is the target van here. This is supposed to be second from the engine. If you've watched my shunting videos long enough, you know that at the earliest opportunity, the target van has to be the second one from the engine. Wow. Anyway, I'll probably put subtitles in to let you know at the time. I'm making a mistake. I'm making a mistake. Okay, let's reset. Son of an arse. So we'll now collect the MBC. The birds outside are going mental now. The rain stopped. So they've come out to splash about in the wet grass, I guess. I might put this MRC into the far siding to grab that one as well, and then hook it up with that MLV as well. So there you go. Don't ever let it be said that I tried to pass myself off as perfect. Alright, that's our MBC in the shed at long last. And that's our next one, the MRC 25088. Which is up here. So, now, on the these MLVs and on two of the MRCs and the MBC as well, you will see a red diamond. That does not mean that these vans are carrying flammable materials. It means these vans are rated and certified to be coupled up as part of an express passenger consist. Because there were times when goods, particularly ice chilled goods, were needed somewhere in a hurry, and these vans had their bogies and bearings certified to be able to run at express passenger speeds. And this is New South Wales in Australia, so we're talking at, I think, 70 miles an hour, it might have been 70 or 75 miles per hour, not breakneck European speeds or British speeds. In Australia, we've never really known what high-speed rail is. Some of our steam locomotives used to get banging along at speeds in excess of 80 miles per hour. But then by the time we're getting into the diesel age and the electric age, our railways were becoming more congested. So then it was difficult to facilitate these almost high-speed express services. And in fact, I think the Newcastle Flyer, which is an express service between Sydney Central Station and Newcastle Station, which of course was actually discontinued. Newcastle Station was discontinued, I think, 10 years ago. That service, this is the NLMA, that express passenger service was faster with steam than it ever was with diesel. And the NLMA is the MLV right up in the corner. So that explains the red diamond on some of the vans. And of course you may have noticed the MBC appears to have not its original bogies, and that's true too. This model depicts this MBC as it was actually photographed, with roller bearing bogies. Anyway, bit of wagon trivia. That faint knocking sound you can hear, that is the forward and leading wheel set of the boiler section of 1823, going over joins in the rail. And the this model engine is particularly sensitive to any voltage variations within the track. On the Fleischmann points, the blades themselves suffer from a voltage drop. Okay, so our for goodness sakes, our target van is now the second from the engine. That really is a charming little model. Imagine if the tooling still existed. And imagine if one of the Australian brands cared enough to think, you know, there's the potential here to bring back something for kids and try to reintroduce the hobby for children. if we get children into model railways, chances are they'll stay in the hobby into adulthood. I'm not sure that the Australian brands are working that out. They target only adults with their models. So this 1823 has, apart from the buffers, I think the buffers are made of steel and they slip in and out. Apart from the buffers, there are no separately applied parts. It's suitable for children. So imagine if one of the Australian names thought, yeah, just as a bit of a laugh, we could upgrade the mech, we'd leave it tender powered, so we have nothing to do to the boiler section at all. Just give it a pancake motor that encompasses a flywheel. And that's it. I've proved right here that a knuckle coupler goes straight into the tender. Instant model, suitable for kids. Come on, sweetheart, you're supposed to go. Okay, it's the boiler section that needs a tickle. Yes, it was. Come on. And would, I wouldn't suggest that an attempt would be made to pass it off as a 19 class. Casula Hobbies. Why did you launch? Casula Hobbies producing a 19 class 060 tender locomotive that will retail for 795 Australian dollars for the analogue version. That's the price we pay in Australia. But anyway, I think it would be courageous for any Australian brand to do anything that encourages children to start modelling. But I think they're frightened of scaring adults off. Oh, no adult will buy anything that doesn't have 258 separately applied parts. Yeah, well done. You just keep up with that thinking. And our last van is the MLV 1568. And that's the one right here. No, we've missed Knuckles. I'm going to have to trundle you out a little bit, sweetheart. And now we've knuckled. So, our target van is the second one from the engine.